I've been working night shifts at the hospital for about a week now. I'm 32 and still paying off my student loans from nursing school. I've always wanted to help people, but these long, quiet hours are starting to get to me. The hospital is old, with buzzing fluorescent lights and stained linoleum floors. Most nights, I'm alone, and all I want is some laughter, even just a voice. On my second night, I spotted a patient room door ajar. I peered inside and found it empty. I thought maybe the patient had been discharged, but a chill ran down my spine. I figured the nurses just forgot to lock it. I shrugged it off, but a part of me didn't feel right. As the nights went by, strange things kept happening. I'd hear laughter echoing in the halls, almost like a child's giggle. But every time I checked, the rooms were always empty. I thought maybe I was just tired. My heart raced, and I tried to focus on the job. One night, I found a note in the break room. It was blank but positioned perfectly, like someone wanted me to find it. I felt a shiver run down my back. Maybe it was a prank. I asked a few coworkers, but they just laughed it off, smiling like I was telling a ghost story. Then I saw it. One night while I was restocking supplies, I caught a shadow out of the corner of my eye. It stood beside a bed. I turned quickly, but there was nothing when I looked straight ahead. My hands felt icy, and I wanted to run, but I forced myself to stay calm. It could just be my tired mind playing tricks. The hospital felt heavier that week. I sensed isolation, and I thought I'd seen figures or heard footsteps behind me. Each time I turned around, there was nothing. It made me uneasy. It felt like I was drifting through a fog, doing my rounds but never really awake. I shared my experiences with the other orderlies. I mentioned the laughter and the blank notes. They smiled, but I saw doubt in their eyes. They didn't believe me, or maybe they didn't want to. I felt like I was going crazy. Then one night, as I finished my shift, I passed that same room with the open door. My heart dropped. I looked inside. The bed was made, but I heard a soft whisper calling my name. I froze. I wanted to run, but I couldn't move. "Is anyone there?" I asked, my voice shaking. Silence washed over me. The whisper stopped, and I felt an icy presence. I didn't know what to do. Now, I can't shake the feeling that there is something in those halls I've yet to see. My shifts feel longer, and the laughter echoes in my mind. I never stopped thinking about it. What I encountered next would change everything I believed about life and death in that hospital. As I walked into the hospital for another night shift, I could feel the tension in the air. It was thicker than usual, almost palpable. I tried to shake off the unease. Maybe it was just my imagination, spurred on by sleepless nights and too much caffeine. The clatter of my shoes echoed as I made my way to the break room. I grabbed a cup of coffee, hoping it would help clear my head. Just as I took a sip, I noticed something shifted outside the corner of my eye. I turned to see that same door again, the one that had been ajar before. This time, the crack was wider. A dark shape was inside, barely visible. My heart did that familiar stutter as I set down my cup. Instinct kicked in, and I wanted to get a closer look, despite the warning bells going off in my head. I stepped softly toward the door, each footfall muted against the linoleum. "Is someone there?" I whispered, but only silence answered back. I peered inside. The lights flickered suddenly, illuminating the room just enough for me to see a child's toy, a small, worn-out teddy bear sitting on the edge of the bed, as if waiting for someone to pick it up. The sight sent a chill through me. I slowly backed away and took a deep breath. That's when I noticed something else: footsteps, soft but distinct, coming down the hallway. I turned quickly, ready to confront whoever was there, but I found nothing. Just the same old wall, the same buzzing lights. I decided to keep going with my rounds, hoping to push the unease aside. The laughter, though, persisted, weaving in and out of my thoughts like an echo. I couldn't tell if I was imagining it or if there was something more to it. I stopped at the nurse's station, but the other orderlies were busy working, focused on their tasks. I mentioned the door and the teddy bear, but they just shrugged it off. "You're overthinking, man. Just the stress of the job." My shift dragged on, and every creak and groan of the building felt amplified. I took a moment to collect myself in the supply room, running a hand over my face. That was when I spotted another note, this one on the counter. It simply said, "Help me." Now my heart raced. Suddenly, it all felt too real, too close. I darted a glance toward the break room, then back at the note. Who wrote this? I took the note, carefully folding it into my pocket. I felt an urge to run, but something rooted me. I had to figure this out. What did it mean? As I stood there, the temperature dropped. I could see my breath come out in small puffs. A painful tightening gripped my chest. Just then, I heard the giggle again, clear and bright. It cut through the silence, yanking me back. I had to find the source. I jerked around, ready to confront whatever or whoever was playing these games. That S when I saw it, a figure, small and pale, standing at the end of the hall. My breath caught. A child, but not just any child. They looked familiar. My breath hitched again. I knew this face, but how? Before I could process, the figure began to fade into the shadows, moving like a whisper through the darkness. I felt a pull, a need to follow, but every instinct screamed to run. I stood frozen, caught between the past and this eerie present, unsure of what came next. All I could think was, what did this child want from me? The figure disappeared before I could make sense of it. Panic surged through me, and suddenly I was in motion. I raced down the hall, stopping only when I reached the intersection where the child's apparition had been. The corridor felt empty, eerily quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos I felt inside. Think, I mumbled to myself as I paced. What should I do? Part of me wanted to call for help, but the other half felt like doing that would prove I was losing my grip on reality. I couldn't let anyone see me like this. I took a deep breath, willing my heart to slow. I remembered the note, the desperate plea that had grabbed my attention. Help me. What if it had something to do with the child? I felt an eerie connection brewing inside me, a sense that I was being drawn into something bigger, something that involved more than just restless spirits. I walked back toward the break room where I had seen the teddy bear. As I neared the door, my instincts flared. Something wasn't right. I hesitated, listening, hoping for any sound that would guide me in the right direction. I barely registered the faint scratching noise from the room when the lights flickered once more, plunging the hallway into darkness. Then, with a sharp gasp, the emergency lights kicked in. Everything around me was bathed in a dim, eerie glow. I squinted into the room. Hello. I called out, my voice steadying, but even I could hear the tremor underlying it. A shadow shifted again, but this time it was more than just a fleeting image. I could see the outline of the teddy bear, but instead of lying still, it felt as though it had moved away from the bed and now faced me. I took a careful step inside the room, heart pounding in my ears. Then I saw it on the bed, a small glint caught my eye. I approached and realized it was a name tag, the kind that might belong to a patient. It read, Emily. No doubt now, I felt her presence. The giggle echoed back. Emily. I thought of the child I'd seen. Was this her? Just as I reached for the tag, a blast of cold air surged through the room, whipping around me. I instinctively recoiled. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, hunted. Then a sudden crash came from down the hall, abruptly breaking the spell of silence, pulling my focus away from the ghostly presence. My heart raced again as I turned, ready for whatever might come next. Footsteps thundered closer, quick and erratic. They weren't the soft shuffles I had heard earlier. Validation washed over me. Someone or something was here with me, and it wasn't just my imagination. As the footsteps grew louder, I stepped back, my heart thumping heavily in my chest. I had to make a choice. Stay and confront whatever was coming or flee and risk losing it all. But before I could decide, a shadow rushed past the doorway, and all I could think was that I had to follow. Wait! I yelled, the call echoing off the walls. Was it Emily? Or something darker? And as I dashed after the fading shape, I had one terrifying realization: what if this wasn't just about helping her? What if I was the one who needed saving? I bolted down the dim corridor, the sound of my footsteps mixing with the echo of someone or something up ahead. The chill in the air grew sharper, each breath crystallizing my uncertainty. I followed the whispering shadow, every instinct screaming at me to stop, yet something deeper compelled me to chase. Emily! I called out once more, my voice wavering. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see the apparition of the child again, but nothing was there. It felt as if I was the only one caught in this haunted dance. The hallway twisted and turned, and I lost sight of the shape, just a momentary flicker gone in the abyss. I cursed under my breath. Where are you? I pressed forward, heart racing with a mixture of hope and fear. If it was Emily, surely I could help her, but each step felt heavier than the last. The overhead lights buzzed, flickering intermittently, casting strange shadows that seemed to pull at my sanity. I rounded a corner and skidded to a stop. There, in front of me, was a door slightly ajar. I could hear weak sobbing through the crack. My heart sank. Was it Emily? Anxiety surged within me, urging me to knock and ask if she was all right. But I hesitated. What if it wasn't her? What if it was something more sinister hiding behind that door? Then I heard it again, a soft, "Help me." I couldn't ignore it. Tossing caution aside, I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was dark, the only light coming from a cracked window where the moonlight pooled on the floor. I peered into the space, but the sobbing had stopped, leaving an unsettling stillness. I quickly scanned the room, and my heart dropped at what I saw: a tattered hospital gown hanging motionless on the edge of a bed, identical to one Emily might have worn. "Hello?" I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. No response. Then, from the corner of my eye, I caught another flicker of movement. I turned just in time to see a form slip behind a curtain. My instincts kicked in again, and I moved closer, my stomach twisting with every step that I pulled back the curtain, my breath hitching in my throat. There was nothing but an empty chair. The old fabric had been pulled tight, seemingly waiting for someone who would never return. Suddenly, a cold wind rushed through the room, slamming the door behind me. I spun around, my heart pounding. I was trapped. That a soft giggle echoed from behind me, and I barely had time to react before the temperature plummeted. There, standing at the foot of the bed, was the figure of Emily. Her small face was pale, her eyes wide with an emotion I couldn't quite read. "Help me," she pleaded, as if she'd been waiting for me to find her. A jolt of panic coursed through me. "What do you need help with?" I asked, desperate to know, but before she could answer, the shadow in the corner shifted again, darker and more menacing. My body froze as that realization crashed over me: there was more to this night than I understood. I had crossed a line I couldn't see. The giggles faded, replaced by a low growl creeping from the darkened corners of the room. In that instant, I knew this was a game I hadn't signed up to play. My next choice was clear: I had to escape before whatever that was came for me too. My heart raced as I scanned the room. Emily's pleading eyes were locked onto mine, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't alone. The low growl grew louder, reverberating off the walls like a threat just waiting to strike. I had to make a decision, and fast. "Emily," I said, my voice quivering. "Where are you? What is this place?" I took a step back, my instincts screaming at me to run. But Emily shook her head, her expression desperate. "It's not safe here," she whispered urgently. That was when I noticed something glinting under the bed. I hesitated, knowing I needed to leave, but curiosity tugged me closer. I crouched down and reached beneath the bed. My fingers brushed against something cold and metallic. I pulled it into the light. A small, rusted key.as I stood up, the room felt smaller. The growl morphed into a snarl, and I could sense the shadow lurking closer, threatening to envelop me. "Emily, we need to get out of here," I said, clutching the key tight. "Not that way," she replied, her voice trembling. "You can't open that door. It's worse out there." Panic surged through me. Then what do I do? I had no time to question her words, but it didn't feel right to stay either. "What do I unlock?" "Close the curtain," she gasped. Before I could process what she meant, the darkness shifted again, seemingly reaching for me. I swung around and yanked the curtain shut, my chest tightening with fear. I was not prepared for what happened next. The room shimmered, the air thick with tension. The growling faded, and for a moment everything went silent. I turned to Emily. She looked almost relieved. But then her expression shifted to one of warning. "They'll try to trick you. Don't listen." I had no idea what she was talking about. Suddenly, the cold wind picked up again, whipping through the room like a cyclone. The walls seemed to pulse. I stumbled back toward the door, but it wouldn't budge. I jiggled the knob, desperation fueling my efforts. And then I saw it. A shadowed figure loomed in the doorway, blocking the exit. Its form shifted and twisted, an amalgamation of dark whispers. I could barely breathe with fear as I realized this was what had been watching me, what had followed me here. "Help me!" Emily cried out again, her terror palpable. "Get behind me!" I shouted, standing between her and the encroaching dark. In one hand, I held the key, the other clenched into a fist, and then it laughed, a low, chilling sound that echoed through me. I had to do something. I could feel a surge of energy rising within me, instinct pulling me toward the key. There was an urge to unlock whatever it was that was happening, to end the nightmare I found myself in. That moment of clarity, I bolted toward the bed and pressed the key tightly against the wood frame, searching for a lock, praying there was something more I could do. That's when I saw it, a small keyhole hidden beneath the thin layer of dust. My heart raced as I shoved the key in and turned it. The door creaked open behind me, revealing an abyss of darkness as I turned around. But I knew there was no going back now. I stepped through the door, heart pounding. I wasn't sure what I expected, but the intense darkness surprised me. The air felt heavy, thick with something I couldn't name. I strained to see, but the shadows swallowed any light that tried to escape. "Emily!" I called, trying to keep my voice steady. No response. Panic clawed at my throat. I turned to the door, but it had vanished. Just gone. The realization sent chills down my spine. I was trapped in this dark void alone. "Focus," I whispered to myself, forcing my breathing to slow. I searched for any hint of an exit, anything to guide me. Suddenly, I felt the cold metal of the key still in my hand. Remembering Emily's urgency, I scanned the wall, searching for another place to use it. The whispers began again. They danced at the edge of my hearing, a mix of soft murmurs and mocking laughter. I shut my eyes, trying to block them out, but they grew louder, swirling around me. I grasped the key tighter, feeling the rust scraping against my palm. "Stop it!" I shouted, voicing my fear and frustration. And then, without warning, a small light flickered above me. I squinted, trying to make sense of the source. In front of me, a faint silhouette emerged, a figure, hazy and indistinct, standing just out of reach. "Help me," the figure pleaded, its voice barely above a whisper. "Is that you, Emily?" I shouted, but the figure only shook its head, and a deep sorrow clouded its features. "No. It's not her. Do not trust it." The warning echoed in my mind. But I couldn't stop myself from stepping closer. The light shimmered, revealing a glimpse of familiar features, someone I knew, but how? The figure reached out, hand extended, as if trying to bridge the gap between us. "Just come closer, I can save you," it urged. The desperation in its tone pulled at my heart. My instincts screamed at me to back away. In that moment, I recalled Emily's warning. The voices and the figure started to blend, creating a cacophony of deceit. "No!" I shouted, stumbling back, breaking contact with the haunting silhouette. The light flickered violently before vanishing entirely. I gasped, heart racing, realizing I had made the right choice. Whatever it was not benign, but now the void felt different. A low rumble echoed, shaking the ground beneath my feet. Shadows twisted around me, forming dark tendrils that reached out. A wave of fear swept through me. I had to escape before I became their prey. That I looked around frantically for a door or any kind of escape. My fingers brushed against the cold, stone wall, searching for a hidden latch or crack. That's when I noticed it, a faint glow emanating from the far corner of the room. It drew me in, illuminating my path. I dashed towards it, each step weighted with dread. I didn't know what awaited me, but I couldn't stay here, not with that figure lurking in my mind. As I approached, I could see the glow was coming from small, intricate carvings on the wall. They looked ancient, filled with strange symbols that seemed to pulsate with energy. I felt the pull of the key once more. "Please be the answer," I whispered, inserting the key into a small, circular indentation next to the carvings. Suddenly, the carvings reacted, lighting up the room. A door formed before me, but I realized the glow was not the light of a safe escape, it was something else entirely, something sinister. The voices rose again, melding into a chilling chorus that I had to act fast. Whatever I faced next might be worse than what had come before. The strange machinery whirred around me, the metallic scent of oil and steel mixing with something more organic. My instincts were screaming, and I knew I had to move quickly. I yanked the key from the wall, but as I did, the carvings dimmed, their energy fading like a dying ember. I turned to the newly formed door. It stood solid, but I could see darkness lurking beyond the threshold. Whatever lay ahead made the shadows I had just escaped seem inviting. With a shaky breath, I pushed against the door. To my surprise, it swung open effortlessly, revealing a dimly lit corridor lined with flickering fluorescent lights. I stepped through, hoping it led somewhere safe, but the moment I entered, the pervasive whispers morphed into palpable laughter. I pressed my back against the cold wall, desperately searching for a familiar face or sign of life. "Emily?" I called again, though I knew deep down she wouldn't answer. A sudden thud echoed behind me. I turned, heart racing, but there was nothing there. Just the empty corridor, stretching into the shadows. I had a brief urge to run, but the muffled sounds drew me in. They were unlike anything I had heard before, disjointed fragments of conversations that tickled my memory. I moved forward, cautious but curious. Then something caught my eye. To my right, a door cracked open, letting out a faint glow. I edged closer, half expecting something to leap out at me. When I peered inside, my breath hitched. The room was filled with old medical equipment, its surfaces covered in dust. On the wall, I saw photographs, images of patients from decades ago. Their eyes echoed a multitude of emotions: hope, fear, despair. Among them, I recognized one of Emily, her smile bright under the stark fluorescent lights. It felt wrong seeing her here, immortalized in that frame, trapped in this strange place. As I reached for the photo album on a nearby table, the whispers returned, intertwining with the echoes of the past. "Leave her," one voice urged. "She's not who you think she is." I dropped the album, panic flooding my chest again. Was it true? Did Emily belong to this dark history? Before I could contemplate further, a loud bang reverberated through the building, causing the lights to flicker violently. The presence felt closer, creeping up on me from the shadows. I could feel it in my bones. I needed to get out. I bolted back to the corridor, the whispers morphing into a frantic chant urging me to run. I sprinted ahead, desperate for a door, any doorway to get me away from whatever was looming behind. The corridor twisted endlessly, each turn unveiling more darkness. Then I froze in place. Up ahead, a figure stood, shrouded in shadows. My heart dropped as I recognized the outline. It looked like Emily, but the way she stood there motionless and silent sent shivers down my spine. "Emily?" I whispered, dread creeping back in. She didn't respond. Instead, she pointed to the end of the hallway, her eyes hollow and deep. I followed her gesture and saw another door, glowing with an unnatural light. That's when I knew I had no choice. I couldn't stay here, not with her or whatever was pretending to be her blocking my path. I had to push past. As I approached, the figure started to dissolve into shadows, melting away like smoke. But before I could reach it, I heard a soft voice from behind me, urgent and chilling. "Don't leave yet." A cold wave of fear washed over me. I didn't want to look back, but I had to know who it was, and that's when I felt something cold touch my shoulder. I flinched at the chill against my skin, a rush of adrenaline surging through me. My instincts screamed at me to run, but curiosity held me in place. I turned slowly, my breath hitching. There, looming just behind me, was a woman. Her hair fell in dirty strands around a gaunt face, and her eyes bored into me, wide and unnaturally bright. "You can't leave her here," she said, her voice a rasp that sent chills down my spine. "Who are you?" I managed to breathe out. "I've seen her like this before. They take what matters. They turn them hollow." I felt a knot tightening in my stomach. "Emily?" I whispered, desperate to get answers. "What do you know?" The woman shook her head. "Not her. The others. They aren't what they seem." Before I could respond, the lights overhead flickered violently again. The woman flinched, her expression twisted in fear. "You need to get out now." I didn't wait for her to repeat it. I bolted past her, my heart racing, heading toward the door Emily had pointed out. The glow was almost blinding now, pulling at me like a magnet. As I ran, the laughter returned, echoing down the corridor, louder and more mocking. Just as I reached for the doorknob, something grabbed my ankle, pulling me off balance. I hit the ground hard, bracing myself for the impact. Instinctively, I reached out to grab the doorframe, but the force constricted my leg, dragging me back. "Help!" I screamed, but the corridor swallowed my voice. The shadows shifted, pulling together into a shape that was familiar yet unsettling. It coalesced into a figure. Emily's face flickered into view, then shattered like glass. "Don't leave me!" she cried, her voice twisted into something unrecognizable. I pushed myself up and kicked, feeling the grip loosen just enough for me to scramble away. I stumbled to the door, threw it open, and lunged inside, slamming it shut behind me. The room was bright, sterile, with hospital beds lining the walls. My breaths were loud, echoing in the silence. I turned to lock the door, but before I could, a wall of silence fell. The laughter faded, leaving a dull ringing in my ears. I spun back around to survey the room. A stark clinical table stood in the center, with instruments glinting menacingly in the artificial light. A monitor beeped quietly, a steady rhythm that felt out of place. My heart raced. Then I noticed a figure lying motionless on one of the beds, covered in a white sheet. I crept closer, dread pooling in my stomach. As I gently pulled the sheet back, I gasped. It wasn't Emily. Instead, it was a man, his expression peaceful yet haunting, as if he were simply sleeping. But I knew better. This man looked exactly like the one from the photographs in the room I had just fled. That's when I heard the whispers return, now louder, more insistent. "Find her. You must find her." I staggered back, a sudden realization hitting me like a lightning bolt. They were all connected. Then everything went dark. I jolted awake, blinking against the dim light filtering through the windows. My heart raced as panic flooded back. I was still in the sterile room, but everything felt off. The gentle beeping of the monitor was the only sound, but it echoed as if it were amplified. That I sat up, rubbing my eyes. The feeling of being watched crawled over my skin. I glanced around, expecting some shadowed figure lurking in a corner, but found only empty beds. It was too quiet for my liking. "Hello?" I called out hesitantly, my voice shaky. No response. The air felt thick and heavy, as if it held a secret I wasn't meant to uncover. I swung my legs over the bed and stood, each step echoing in the silence. I needed to find out what was happening. The whispers from earlier clamored back in my mind, urging me forward. I turned toward the door, ready to leave this unsettling room behind. As I reached for the knob, a sudden chill swept through the room, settling deep in my bones. It felt like the temperature had dropped, and I shivered. I hesitated, the whispers now a frantic buzz in the back of my head. "Find her. Find her." I took a deep breath and twisted the knob. It clicked open, revealing a dimly lit hallway. My heart lurched at the sight of flickering lights ahead. I stepped out, my senses on high alert. Each shadow felt alive, twisting and shifting. The laughter echoed faintly, taunting me, reminding me of moments I wished to forget. That I moved down the corridor, peering cautiously into each room as I passed. Most were empty, but one door stood slightly ajar. A soft glow emanated from within. My hands trembled as I pushed it open. The room inside was stark, cluttered with medical supplies, but my gaze landed on the figure in the bed. It was a woman, her face obscured by dark hair. I stepped closer, uncertainty gnawing at me. Was this Emily? I needed to know, but as I drew near, she stirred, her eyes snapping open. They were voids, dark and hollow, devoid of life. "Help me," she rasped, reaching out a hand that seemed to dissolve into shadow. A scream lodged in my throat, but no sound came out. I stumbled back, terror spiking through me. This wasn't Emily. It couldn't be. Then I heard it. The clattering of something behind me. I spun around, heart racing once more. The corridor was empty. I risked a glance back at the woman, but she had disappeared, leaving only the echo of her voice. "Get out. Get out now." The woman from before flashed in my mind. She had been right. Whatever this place was, it was a trap. With my breath quickening, I turned and fled down the hallway. I could feel cold fingers gripping my heel, urging me to stay. But I wouldn't. Not this time. That's when I caught sight of a door at the end of the hall, glowing brighter than all the others. Urgency surged through me. I sprinted towards it, the laughter returning, louder and mocking. I reached the door, yanked it open, and stepped through only to find myself standing in a darkened room filled with mirrors, each reflecting my panic-stricken expression back at me. And then, somewhere behind me, the laughter erupted again, fully formed now. "You can never leave." I stared at the reflections, half expecting them to grin back at me. But no, there was only my own terrified face, wide-eyed and drenched in sweat. I spun around to find the source of the laughter, but the room was empty, save for the mirrors and the sink behind me, where water faintly dripped. The sound swelled into a cacophony, hundreds of voices overlapping, telling me I'd never escape. "Enough!" I shouted, clasping my hands over my ears, desperate to block them out. I pressed my back against the cool glass, the laughter rising to a fever pitch. There was a pattern in the chaos, whispers trying to guide me, and I could almost make sense of it. I needed to fight through this labyrinth of sound, this trap. Suddenly, a light flickered. In the nearest mirror, I saw her. Emily's face formed, a soft glimmer in the reflection. Her eyes seemed alive with urgency, though her lips moved without sound. "Help me," she mouthed, and the laughter quieted to a whisper as if my mind was tuning in to her voice, cutting through the noise. "Emily!" I cried, reaching out toward the mirror, but my fingers merely touched the cold surface, rippling it like the surface of a tranquil pond. "Where are you?" I felt a jolt of connection, as if I could feel her plight echoing in my bones. As if she were within reach. "Follow," she mouthed again. My heart dipped as I felt the warmth of determination rise. I made my choice. I couldn't succumb to this darkness. I turned my back to the mirror, forcing myself away, a deliberate act of defiance against the whispers that wanted to claim me. The cacophony of laughter erupted again, but I would not turn back. I pressed deeper into the unknown, barreling through the haze of mirrors until a door stood before me, glowing dimly with an inviting light. I gripped the knob, turning it with all the strength I had left. As I stepped through, I was met with the sterile chill of the hallway I recognized from earlier, a place stitched with tension, where the shadows crept closer. I felt the weight of unseen eyes on me, the echoes of Emily's plea filling the space. I couldn't stop now. I dashed down the corridor, heart racing as the laughter around me morphed into frustrated howls. I risked glancing back, the shadows folded in on themselves, struggling against the light of my resolve. Then, I caught a glimpse of another door. This one was different, richly adorned, and light streamed from beneath. My veins thrummed with urgency. "Emily!" I shouted, feeling her spirit guiding me like a compass in the dark. I didn't know what awaited inside, but it felt like my only chance that I flung the door open and leaped through, collapsing onto the floor of a brightly lit room that left me momentarily blinded. My heart raced as clarity returned. I was in a different ward, warm colors splashing against the white walls, starkly contrasting the haunting darkness behind me. The beeping of machines filled the air, sounding like a heartbeat of life. "Emily!" I called, stepping through the room that felt oddly familiar. A series of beds lined up against the wall, each bearing familiar faces, glimpses of patients I recognized from the hospital history. But one bed stood out. My heart leaped as I approached it. A small, fragile form lay beneath the sheets. I needed to wake her up. So I reached out, shaking her shoulder ever so gently. "Emily, it's me. Please wake up." Her eyes fluttered open, deep pools of confusion. "Help me," she murmured, but her voice felt distant, echoing with something deeper, entangled in shadows beyond this world. I couldn't let that happen. "It's okay. You need to come back with me," I said, my voice shaky. The shadows behind me lurked closer, their icy fingers attempting to claw at my consciousness. "Stay," she whispered, but panic flared in my chest. "It's worse here." It hit me like a tidal wave. This wasn't just about Emily being lost, I felt that this place harbored something else entirely. No matter how much I wanted to save her, I couldn't let myself be devoured again. I had to leave, had to take Emily with me. "Emily, we need to go. Trust me," I urged, shaking her again, feeling the urgency pulsing around us. The walls shifted in disarray, shadows creeping closer. I grasped her hand firmly, the key still clutched tightly in my fist. "What are you doing?" came a new voice. I looked over my shoulder to see the gaunt woman from before standing at the edge of the room, her expression a mix of warning and fear. "You mustn't." But I held Emily's gaze, that flicker of recognition sparking through the haze. With resolve, I squeezed her hand tighter. "No more games. We're leaving." I tugged gently, pulling her up from the bed, adrenaline rushing through me. Together, we moved toward the door, the shadows pressing in on all sides, trying to reclaim their lost. As I threw open the door, the temperature plummeted, but the light pulled us forward. I could hear the laughter rising once more, a blend of desperation and fury. "Run!" I shouted, feeling their power pulse behind me, desperate to claim what they thought was theirs. Emily squeezed my hand in return, filling me with warmth, urgency fueling every step. We raced down the halls, as the sound of laughter twisted into anguished cries that we didn't stop until we burst through another door into a familiar hallway. The bright lights flickered above us, and I thought I could sense an end to it all, that everything might be okay. But I knew better. The shadows would never truly let us go. We stood there, momentarily free, hearts racing as we looked back at the door we escaped from. The whispers remained, echoing faintly, never far behind. I still didn't know if Emily was real or just a remnant of the past haunting this place. But the laughter kept fading, allowing me a breath of relief. For tonight, we had escaped. I still think about it sometimes, though wondering if Emily is still out there. Sometimes I hear laughter echoing in the night, shivers running down my spine, leaving unanswered questions lingering on the edge of my mind. Like why those shadows thrive, and if they will ever truly let me and her go.